After studying this module, one would be able to learn about the key concepts and major constructs of rational emotive behavior therapy REBT, understand the counseling process of Ellis's approach, examine the techniques and procedures adopted by the REBT practitioner, and evaluate the contributions of REBT. When a person describes a problem or concern, one of these thoughts, emotions, and behaviors is likely to be more accessible or prominent than the other two. For example, Harsh was upset about an interaction with his wife Kavita that occurred when Harsh's younger brother Lalit was dying of cancer. Harsh might describe the intervention with his wife in the following three ways. Description 1. We were supposed to take our vacation when I found out that Lalit was dying. I talked to the doctors, who said he only had a few weeks to live. I tried to be there for Lalit. I told Kavita that I wanted to postpone the vacation, so we put it off for a month. Lalit's health was failing but was alive then, so I suggested we postpone the vacation again. Kavita would not consider it, so I went on the vacation even though it was not what I wanted to do. Lalit died while we were in Spain. We flew home for the funeral. Description 2. We were supposed to take our vacation when I found out Lalit was dying. I was devastated when I found out. I could not bear the idea of going on a vacation while he was dying. I felt enraged when Kavita refused to postpone our vacation a second time, but I was afraid I would lose my marriage if I did not comply with her wishes. Lalit died while we were in Spain. I felt so guilty that I had not been there with him. Description 3. We were supposed to take our vacation when I found out that Lalit was dying. All I could think of was that I needed to be with him when he died. When Kavita refused to postpone our vacation the second time, I thought she did not care about me and only thought about her own needs. But I believed that it would hurt my marriage if I did not go on the trip with her. Lalit died while we were in Spain. I thought that I would never be able to forgive myself for not being with him. Each of Harsh's description has a different focus. Description 1 focuses on actions. Description 2 on emotions. Description 3 on thoughts. Rational emotive behavior therapy REBT emphasizes on thoughts. Rational emotive therapy, now known as REBT, was developed early in 1955 by Albert Ellis. This treatment approach assumes that people's cognitions are the primary source of their difficulties. Although rational emotive behavior therapists believe that thoughts, emotions, and behaviors are interrelated, they view helping people think more rationally as the most effective route to improving all three areas of functioning. This approach is based on the assumption that cognitions, emotions, and behaviors interact significantly and have a reciprocal cause and effect relationship, thus qualifying it as a multimodal and integrative approach. The basic assumption of REBT is that the way people understand events and situations adds up to their psychological problems. REBT has its own approach to disputing and modifying distorted cognitions. Persuasion and teaching, along with gathering evidence, are important strategies for rational emotive behavior counselors. REBT is a challenging perspective that has little in common with the psychoanalytic, person-centered, and Gestalt approaches. It has more in common with the therapies that are oriented towards cognition and behavior in that it stresses on thinking, judging, deciding, analyzing, and doing.
REBT is based on the assumption that humans have a biological tendency to think irrationally or dysfunctionally, as well as rationally or functionally. Therefore, Even though they have an inborn propensity toward growth and actualization, human beings can readily sabotage their growth by their unrealistic, illogical, or other types of defeatist thinking. Ellis and Dryden noted that although social influences exist, even people with the most rational upbringing show evidence of major irrationalities and often adopt new irrationalities after giving up previous ones. Nevertheless, REBT theory clearly asserts that despite the tendency to think irrationally, humans have the ability to construct self enhancing thoughts, feelings, and behaviors, and are strongly motivated to change things for the better. Fundamental to REBT is the notion that our contradictory nature, along with our social upbringing, not only impels us to create happier and more fulfilling lives, but also encourages us to elevate strong desires, goals, and preferences into absolutist and unrealistic shoulds, oughts, and musts that lead to emotional and behavioral difficulties. Ellis has concluded that humans are self talking, self evaluating, and self sustaining. They develop emotional and behavioral difficulties when they mistake simple preferences for dire needs. Dryden et al. Noted that these shoulds, oughts, and musts fall under three main categories. Self demandingness refers to the idea that we must always perform well and win others' approval, and if we do not, we are incompetent, unworthy, and deserve to suffer. Self hatred, anxiety, and depression often result from self demandingness, along with procrastination, withdrawal, and obsessiveness. Other demandingness implies that people with whom we associate must always treat us kindly, considerately, and fairly, and if they do not, they are unworthy, bad, rotten, and deserve to be punished. Anger, rage, hurt, jealousy, vindictiveness, and violence develop as a result. World demandingness means that the conditions in which we live must be enjoyable, hassle free, safe, and favorable. And if they're not, the world is awful, horrible, and unbearable. This form of demandingness often leads to anger, depression, self pity, and low frustration tolerance, as well as withdrawal, procrastination, phobias, and addictions. We originally learn irrational beliefs from significant others during childhood. Additionally, we create irrational dogmas and superstitions by ourselves. Then we actively reinstill self defeating beliefs by the process of autosuggestion and self repetition and by behaving as if they are useful. Hence, it is largely our own repetition of early indoctrinated irrational thoughts rather than a parent's repetition that keeps dysfunctional attitudes alive and operative within us. REBT contends that people do not need to be accepted and loved, even though this may be highly desirable. The counselor teaches clients how to feel undepressed even when they are unaccepted and unloved by significant others. Although REBT encourages people to experience sadness over being unaccepted, it attempts to help them find ways of overcoming depression, anxiety, hurt, loss of self worth, and hatred. REBT insists that blame is the core of most emotional disturbances. We had better stop blaming ourselves and others. Instead, it is important that we learn to accept ourselves despite our imperfections. Ellis hypothesizes that we have strong tendencies to escalate our desires and preferences into dogmatic shoulds, musts, oughts, demands, and commands. Ellis suggests that when we are upset, it is a good idea to look to our hidden dogmatic musts and absolutistic shoulds. Such demands create disruptive feelings and dysfunctional behaviors. Here are some irrational ideas that we internalize and that inevitably lead to self-defeat. I must have love or approval from all the significant people in my life. I must perform important tasks competently and perfectly well. Because I strongly desire that people treat me considerately and fairly, they absolutely must do so. If I do not get what I want, it's terrible and I can't stand it. Developing a rational philosophy of life is a major construct of REBT. A rational philosophy is designed to help people increase their happiness and decrease emotional distress. The purpose of a rational philosophy is to identify beliefs that lead to survival, satisfaction with living, positive ways of relating to others, intimate involvement with a few others, and personally fulfilling endeavors. Commitment to the scientific method is also a central aspect of REBT. Testing one's assumptions and examining the validity and functionality of beliefs are important, as well as developing flexibility in adopting new beliefs to guide behavior. Ellis's theory includes some elements of constructivism, specifically in the sense that humans would be better off if they understood that they themselves create their images of how the world is or should be. Whereas modern constructivists assert that people should be allowed to find their own reality and develop alternative beliefs on their own, REBT posits that there are some constructions, namely rational beliefs, that are more functional and lead to emotional adjustment. Therefore, REBT and counselor focus on helping clients develop rational as opposed to irrational constructions. According to REBT, certain values promote emotional adjustment and mental health. These values include self-acceptance. Healthy people accept themselves unconditionally and do not measure their worth by their achievements. They try to enjoy themselves rather than try to prove themselves. Risk taking. Emotionally healthy people take risks and tend to be rather adventurous but not foolish. Non-utopian. Healthy people realize they are unlikely to get everything they want, and they do not attempt to avoid everything they find painful. They accept the fact that there is no such thing as utopia, and therefore do not strive for the unattainable or for unrealistic perfectionism. High frustration tolerance. Healthy people recognize that there are problems they cannot do something about and those they cannot change. Their goal is to modify the negative conditions that can be changed, accept those that cannot, and have the wisdom to know the difference between the two. Self-responsibility for disturbance. Healthy individuals do not blame others, the world, or fate for their distress. Instead, they accept a good deal of responsibility for their own thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. Self-interest. Emotionally healthy people tend to put their own interests somewhat above the interests of others. Although they sacrifice themselves to some degree for those for whom they care, they do not do this completely. Social interest. Most people choose to live in social groups. Therefore, they understand that it is important to act morally, protect the rights of others, and contribute to society in order to help create the kind of world in which they would like to live. Self-direction. Emotionally healthy people generally assume responsibility for their own lives, but at the same time they cooperate with others. They do not need or demand considerable support or nurturance from others. Tolerance. Healthy individuals allow themselves and others the right to be wrong, recognizing that they may not like unpleasant or obnoxious behavior, but do not condemn humans for behaving that way. Flexibility. Mature, healthy people are unbigoted, open to change, and flexible in their thinking. They do not make rigid rules for themselves or others. Acceptance of uncertainty. Healthy individuals acknowledge and accept the fact that they live in a world where absolute certainties do not exist. Although they like some degree of order, they do not demand to know exactly what will happen. Commitment. Individuals tend to be happier and healthier if they are involved in something outside themselves and have at least one strong creative interest around which they structure part of their lives. ABC Theory of Personality. This theory of personality is central to REBT theory and practice. A is the existence of a fact, an event. B, the behavior or attitude of an individual. C is the emotional behavioral consequence or reaction of the individual. The reaction can be either healthy or unhealthy. A, the activating event, does not cause C, the emotional consequence. Instead, B, which is the person's belief about A, largely causes C, the emotional reaction. If a person experiences depression after a divorce, for example, it may not be the divorce itself that causes the depressive reaction, but the person's beliefs about being a failure, being rejected, or losing mate. Thus, human beings are largely responsible for creating their own emotional reactions and disturbances, showing people how they can change the irrational beliefs that directly cause their disturbed emotional consequences is the heart of REBT. How is an emotional disturbance fostered? It is fed by the illogical sentences clients continually repeat to themselves, such as, I am totally to blame for the divorce. I am a miserable failure, and everything I did was wrong. I am a worthless person. Ellis repeatedly makes the point that you mainly feel the way you think. Disturbed emotional reactions, such as depression and anxiety, are initiated and perpetuated by clients' self defeating belief systems, which are based on irrational ideas clients have incorporated and invented. After A, B, and C comes D, or disputing. Essentially, D is the application of the scientific method to help clients challenge their irrational beliefs. Because the principles of logic can be taught, they can be used to destroy any unrealistic, unverifiable hypothesis. There are three components of this distribute there are three components of this disputing process: detecting, debating, and discriminating. First, clients learn how to detect their irrational beliefs, particularly their absolutistic shoulds and I musts, their awfulizing, and their self downing. Then, clients debate their dysfunctional beliefs by learning how to logically and empirically question them and to vigorously argue themselves out of and act against believing them. Finally, clients learn to discriminate irrational or self defeating beliefs from rational or self helping beliefs. Although REBT uses many other cognitive, emotive, and behavioral methods to help clients minimize their irrational beliefs, it stresses this process of disputing both during therapy session and in everyday life. Eventually, clients arrive at E, an effective philosophy, which has a practical side. A new and effective rational philosophy consists of replacing unhealthy thoughts with healthy ones. If counselors are successful in doing this, they also create F, or a new set of feelings. Instead of feeling seriously anxious or depressed, clients feel appropriately in accord with the situation. The best way to begin to feel better is to develop an effective and rational philosophy. Thus, instead of berating oneself and punishing oneself with depression over the divorce, one would reach a rational and empirically based conclusion. According to REBT theory, the ultimate effect is minimizing feelings of depression and self condemnation. In sum, philosophical restructuring to change one's dysfunctional personality involves these steps: fully acknowledging that we are largely responsible for creating our own emotional problems, accepting the notion that we have the ability to change these disturbances significantly, and recognizing that our emotional problems largely stem from irrational beliefs. Clearly perceiving these beliefs seeing the value of disputing such self-defeating beliefs, accepting the fact that if we expect to change, we had better work hard in emotive and behavioral ways to counteract our beliefs and the dysfunctional feelings and actions that follow, and practicing REBT methods of uprooting or changing disturbed consequences for the rest of our life. To illustrate the ABCDEF model, consider Mahesh's beliefs about his supervisor. Mahesh: A. My supervisor gave me an average rating on my evaluation. A. The first step is identification and description of the activating event. This is the external and objective source of discomfort, the experience that initiates the process of irrational thinking and precipitates the negative thoughts, emotions, and behaviors. Mahesh B. My supervisor should praise me more and is a jerk for not seeing how hard I work. It is awful that I work so hard and am not valued as I ought to be. B is the person's beliefs about the activating event, evaluating that stimulus as positive, negative, or neutral. The belief may be rational or irrational. REBT holds that people may not have a choice about experiences or activating events, but do have a choice about their beliefs related to these activating events. C stands for the consequences of the belief. Of course, the activating event itself can produce negative consequences, but according to REBT, beliefs mediate between events and consequences, with beliefs being a major determinant of most consequences. By assessing the nature and consequences of a belief, counselors can determine whether the belief is irrational and harmful to the client or rational and either neutral or helpful. If the belief is irrational, consequences are likely to be unhealthy and harmful, and might include inappropriate and self-destructive emotions, and inappropriate and self-destructive behaviors. Rational beliefs usually lead to healthier and more constructive consequences, such as appropriate emotions and appropriate behaviors. Mahesh C. Mahesh experienced anger, shame, and anxiety about the possibility of losing his job. His behaviors included berating his supervisor. Initial consequences of a belief can lead to subsequent reinforcing consequences that themselves become activating events. D. Dispute is the next step in the process. Exploration of beliefs and their consequences determines whether they are rational or irrational. In general, counselors begin by focusing on irrational beliefs about immediate situations and then move to more generalized and abstract irrational beliefs. E. The fifth step stands for effective. The outcome of REBT is likely to include both effective rational beliefs and an effective new philosophy. Mahesh E. After disputing his beliefs, Mahesh developed more rational beliefs such as, although I am disappointed that my evaluation was average, it is not the end of the world. I will take steps to familiarize my supervisor with my work and obtain a more positive evaluation next time. F, the last step in the process, represents the new feelings and behaviors that result from the effective rational beliefs. Again, interventions are used to promote change. Mahesh F. Mahesh reported the following emotions and behaviors. I too still feel disappointed with the evaluation, but I am no longer devastated or depressed. I am optimistic that my next evaluation will be better. I will meet my supervisor and provide her with information so that it is likely to happen. Although the ABCDEF process may seem simple and straightforward, changing irrational beliefs to rational ones is a challenging and complex process. It requires effort and practice on the part of the client, as well as well chosen and skillfully used interventions by the counselor. The process can be complicated by the tendency of many people to have second order disturbances, that is, to feel bad about feeling bad. This creates several layers of irrational beliefs that need attention. In addition, people sometimes prefer their familiar discomfort to the risk of the unknown discomfort of change. They also may value the sympathy, attention, and other secondary gains they receive as a result of their problems.
Now let us summarize this module. REBT has been widely used to treat a variety of problems such as hostility, anxiety, depression, psychotic disorders, character disorders, sex, love or marriage problems, etc. Child rearing or adolescence problems also. It is the best suited brief form of counseling when it is applied to individuals, groups, couples or families. REBT was originally developed to make counseling and psychotherapy shorter and more efficient as compared to most other systems. The counseling process and the intervention strategies involved would be described in detail in the next module, that is module 14. The ABC approach can be learned in 1 to 10 sessions. Ellis has used REBT successfully in 1 and 2 day marathons and in 9-hour REBT intensives. People presenting specific problems such as struggling with job loss or retirement issues are prepared to apply REBT principles to help themselves, often using supplementary materials such as books, tapes, etc. REBT is also useful for people undergoing a crisis situation by helping victims in the search for understanding. A counseling session with Albert Ellis is unfolding in the self-learn quadrant of this module.